Yeah, I mean, I won't lie, it's getting harder. It's getting harder. It's getting tougher. Every day gets tougher. But
Michael J. Fox's life is like a journey that takes you from the brightest peaks of success to the toughest, most heartbreaking valleys. He went from being a young star adored by millions to facing the harsh reality of Parkinson's disease in his prime. It's a story of incredible achievements mixed with deep struggles. A life that's as inspiring as it is emotional. Imagine being at the height of your career, living your dream, and then suddenly, everything changes. How do you cope when the very thing you love, acting, moving, living, becomes harder each day? Well, this is the story of Michael J. Fox, a name that everyone in Hollywood knows, a name that has inspired millions around the world. And yes, you guessed it. He's the guy from Back to the Future, the one who mastered time travel long before most of us even figured out how to ride a bike. Well, before the flux capacitors, the signature hoverboard, and all the fame, Michael was just a regular kid with a life as quirky as his future roles. Michael Andrew Fox was born on June 9, 1961, in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. That's right, he's a proud Canadian. His dad, William Fox, was a police officer in the Canadian Forces, while his mom, Phyllis, was a payroll clerk. And Michael? Just a small, scrappy kid growing up in a military family that moved around a lot. Seriously, the guy probably switched addresses more than we switch Wi-Fi passwords. It's just a military thing, you know. The Fox family lived a modest life, often moving from one small town to the next. This gave young Michael a pretty down-to-earth view of the world. No fancy mansions or luxury cars here, just regular family life with 4 siblings. If you're wondering where Michael got his sharp sense of humor, I bet growing up in a household with 4 siblings was the perfect training ground. You had to be quick with comebacks to survive. Now here's where things start to get interesting. Michael was always the creative type. While most kids were busy playing street hockey or getting into trouble, Fox was diving into his imagination. He loved drawing, writing, and just being creative. It wasn't long before he got into acting. At just 15, he snagged a role in a Canadian TV show called Leo and Me. It was a small role, but hey, you gotta start somewhere, right? Michael wasn't actually into acting at first. Nope. His first love? Hockey. A typical Canadian favorite. He wanted to be an NHL star, but, you know, life happens. School life? Not exactly a fan. Michael wasn't exactly a model student. The school was pretty tough for him. Like many creative kids, he had a hard time staying focused in class. He once mentioned that he found the structure of school too limiting for his wild imagination. He'd often spend his time daydreaming rather than paying attention to the teacher. Honestly, can you blame him? Sitting through boring lectures while your brain is running 100 miles an hour. Ugh, the struggles. At one point, he was in danger of not graduating because he was putting all his energy into acting instead of homework. But Michael was determined to make it as an actor, so much so that by the age of 18, he dropped out of high school entirely to pursue his dream full-time. It was a bold move, but as we all know, it worked out pretty well in the end. Fast forward, it's the late 1970s, and Michael J. Fox, just a skinny kid from Canada, arrives in Los Angeles. He's 18, broke, and living in a crummy one-bedroom apartment with barely enough money to pay rent. Not exactly the glamorous Hollywood life we expected. He's going to auditions, but let's just say things aren't going great. At one point, he's so broke that he's eating packets of instant macaroni and cheese for meals. Yikes! But Michael being Michael, he didn't give up. In 1980, he scored a role in a TV show called Palmerstown, USA. He followed that up with another small role in a Canadian film called Midnight Madness. Then, boom! In 1982, everything changed when he landed the role of Alex P. Keaton in the TV show Family Ties. It was a sitcom about a family with liberal parents and a son, Michael's character, who's, well, let's say, a little obsessed with money and business. Michael nailed the role of Alex P. Keaton so hard that he became an instant star. People absolutely loved him. I mean, here's this short, scrappy, sarcastic guy stealing every scene with his quick wit and charm. He wasn't just a breakout star, he became the star of the show. By the mid-'80s, he was a household name, and Family Ties was winning awards left and right. He won 3 Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe for his performance on the show. Now, just when you thought things couldn't get better, here comes 1985. You probably know this year because it's when Michael J. Fox officially became Marty McFly in Back to the Future. And honestly, can you even imagine anyone else in that role? It's iconic. The role of Marty McFly literally launched him into superstardom, and the movie itself became a pop culture phenomenon. Time travel, hoverboards, DeLoreans, it was the movie of the 80s, and Michael's performance was at the heart of it. After that, he filmed 2 Back to the Future sequels in 1989 and 1990. By now, he was one of the biggest stars in the world, and every teenager wanted to be like Marty McFly, cool, funny, and always ready to outwit the bad guys. But it wasn't just about Back to the Future. Michael was also racking up other film roles. Remember Teen Wolf? Yeah, that 1985 movie where Michael turns into a basketball-playing werewolf. It was silly, it was ridiculous, but it worked because, well, Michael just had that natural charisma that could make even a werewolf seem relatable. After Teen Wolf, he went on to star in a series of films throughout the late 80s and early 90s. There was The Secret of My Success, where he played a young businessman climbing the corporate ladder. Then came Doc Hollywood, where he played a doctor stuck in a small town, a classic fish-out-of-water comedy. He also starred in The American President alongside Michael Douglas and Mars Attacks, where he got to be part of a crazy alien invasion movie. Throughout his career, Michael has earned numerous accolades, including 5 Primetime Emmy Awards, 4 Golden Globes, and 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards. Well, these awards were not the only awards he won in his life. The biggest award that he won was his wife, Tracy. I mean, every Hollywood story needs a little romance, right? And trust me, Michael's love story is one for the books. It all starts back in the late 1980s when Michael was riding high on the success of Family Ties. It was on the set of this show that Michael first met his future wife, Tracy Pollan. Now, Tracy wasn't just some extra or background actor. Nope, she was cast to play Ellen, the girlfriend of Michael's character, Alex P. Keaton. I mean, how cute is that? They were love interests on screen, and little did they know they'd soon be writing their own love story off screen. Tracy was actually dating actor Kevin Bacon at the time, so things between Michael and Tracy stayed strictly professional on set. But fast forward a few years, and fate brought them back together. By this time, Tracy and Kevin were no longer together, and Michael saw his opportunity. He seized it and asked her out. It's 1987. Michael and Tracy are hanging out, and he just randomly pulls out the ring and pops the question. They got married on July 16, 1988, and let me tell you, it was a star-studded event. But despite the Hollywood glitz, Michael and Tracy have always kept things pretty grounded. That's kind of their whole vibe. They're just 2 people who genuinely love each other and don't get caught up in Hollywood drama. Michael and Tracy are the proud parents of 4 children, and their family life has been as full of laughter and love as you'd expect. Their first child, Sam Michael Fox, was born in 1989, just a year after they got married. Sam looks almost exactly like a younger Michael. Seriously, it's like they copy-pasted Michael's face from Back to the Future. After Sam, the family expanded even more when Tracy gave birth to twin daughters, Aquina and Skylar, in 1995. Yes, twins! Finally, rounding out the family is their youngest daughter, Esme Annabelle, who was born in 2001. One of the things that really stands out about Michael and Tracy's relationship is how they've kept their sense of humor through everything. And honestly, when you're married to a guy as funny as Michael J. Fox, you've got to have a great sense of humor to keep up. In fact, their humor and love are so infectious that they've become kind of a role model for other Hollywood couples. And things are just so happy that I don't want to make it really sad yet. But yes, life happened, and things took a dark turn. It was his battle with Parkinson's disease. In the 1980s, he was at the top of his game. From Family Ties to Back to the Future, everything he touched seemed to turn to gold. But like many young actors who get a taste of fame early, Michael wasn't immune to the pitfalls of Hollywood life. In his early years, Michael developed some habits that he would later regret. Fame hit him fast, and he didn't have much time to process it. He was everywhere, on TV, in movies, and in the tabloids. And with fame came temptation. In interviews, he's been pretty open about how he got into drinking and drugs like marijuana at a young age. The guy was practically the face of the 80s, and when you're that famous, the pressure can get overwhelming. Drinking became his way of dealing with the stress and anxiety of being in the spotlight. He's admitted that in those early years, he'd often end his days with a drink or several. And this wasn't just your casual glass of wine after a long day. It was more like knocking back shots to numb the stress. Michael has also talked about how, at that time, he was living a pretty fast-paced life. It wasn't just the drinking. He was working non-stop, barely sleeping, and constantly on the go. He was young, rich, and famous, and like many stars in that position, he made some reckless choices. But he wasn't doing any of this because he wanted to be the bad boy. No, it was more about trying to cope with the pressure of stardom. The truth is, fame can be a lonely place, and Michael's way of dealing with it was to drown it out with alcohol and a packed schedule. In 1991, at the age of just 29, Michael started to notice something was wrong. It started with a slight tremor in his pinky finger, a little twitch that wouldn't go away. At first, he didn't think too much of it. But as time went on, more symptoms appeared. He was having trouble with muscle stiffness, and his movements started to feel less coordinated. Something was definitely off. So he went to see a doctor, and after a series of tests, he was given the diagnosis: Parkinson's disease. Let that sink in for a second. He was only 29, still so young, with his whole life ahead of him. And here he was being told that he had a degenerative neurological condition that would progressively get worse. It was a total shock, and Michael said that it felt like the floor was ripped out from under him. He described the diagnosis as a frightening diagnosis to deal with, especially at such a young age. Parkinson's is a progressive neurological disorder that mainly affects movement. It happens because certain nerve cells in the brain, which produce a chemical called dopamine, start dying off. Dopamine is responsible for transmitting signals that help with smooth and coordinated movements. Without enough dopamine, those movements become slower, shakier, and less controlled. That's why people with Parkinson's often have tremors, stiffness, and trouble with balance and coordination. It's not just a physical challenge, it's a massive emotional and mental one too. Imagine being in your prime, with a successful acting career, and suddenly you're dealing with tremors and stiffness. How do you even begin to process that? For Michael, it started with hiding his symptoms. He kept it a secret for 7 years before finally going public with the diagnosis. Living with Parkinson's isn't just tough, it's utterly exhausting. Simple tasks like tying your shoes or holding a cup of coffee can become real challenges. For Michael as an actor, this meant his job, a career that demanded control over his body, voice, and everything. It was becoming increasingly difficult. He was even dealing with memory loss, which as an actor is one of the most important things. Michael has been pretty open about how Parkinson's affected his life, especially his mental health. There were moments of frustration, fear, and sadness. He even talked about using alcohol as a way to cope in the early years. But over time, he learned to manage it. accepting his limitations while still pushing forward. He's also made it clear that living with Parkinson's doesn't just affect the person who has it. It impacts everyone around them. His wife, Tracy Pollan, and their kids have been an incredible support system, but it's still a tough journey. Yet, through it all, Michael has remained optimistic, focusing on hope and humor. He said that while Parkinson's may have taken away a lot from him, it's also given him a new purpose. He didn't want the world to know what was happening. It wasn't just about pride. He was worried that if people knew, it would destroy his career. So for years he kept acting, all the while hiding the fact that his body was slowly betraying him. He'd have to take medication just to get through the day on set. And sometimes he'd time his doses perfectly so that he could film scenes without the tremors becoming noticeable. But it wasn't easy. Behind the scenes he was struggling, not just physically, but emotionally too. During those years, Michael turned even more to alcohol to cope. The diagnosis had shaken him, and drinking became a way to escape the reality of what was happening to his body. He has said that during this time, he wasn't healthily handling the disease. He was in denial, and the drinking only made things worse. Then, in 1998, Michael made a brave decision. He went public with his Parkinson's diagnosis. It was a huge moment, not just for him, but for people all over the world who were living with the disease. He didn't have to come forward. He could have kept hiding it. But Michael, being the stand-up guy that he is, decided to use his platform to raise awareness. Going public wasn't just about the world knowing his secret. It was a turning point for Michael personally. Around this time, he realized he had to change his ways. He stopped drinking and focused on managing his disease. He's often said that it was his family, especially Tracy, who helped him get through those tough years. She was his rock, and her support gave him the strength to face the challenges ahead. As the disease progressed, it became harder for Michael to continue acting. By the early 2000s, he had to make the tough decision to step back from his career. In 2000, he officially retired from full-time acting, but not before giving some incredible performances in Spin City. That role actually earned him an Emmy Award, but it was also his farewell to the world of full-time acting. Even though he retired, Michael didn't disappear from the spotlight. Instead, he shifted his focus to something even more important: finding a cure for Parkinson's. In 2000, he founded the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which has since become one of the leading organizations funding research into Parkinson's disease. Life hasn't been easy for him, and this disease just added to it. The disease has progressed, and Michael has faced some tough moments. But in true Michael J. Fox fashion, he's never lost his sense of humor or his fighting spirit. Michael J. Fox's battle with Parkinson's is heartbreaking, but it's also inspiring. He's shown the world that even in the face of a devastating diagnosis, you can still live a life full of purpose, love, and laughter. He's been open about his struggles, but he's also been a beacon of hope for millions of people. But here's the thing. This guy is way more than just an actor who had to step back from Hollywood because of a disease. Michael took what could have been a devastating end to his career and turned it into something so much bigger. Michael's foundation has become one of the most significant players in Parkinson's research. This wasn't just a feel-good project for Michael, it was personal. He knew how brutal the disease could be, and he wasn't content to just sit around and let it take over his life. This foundation is laser-focused on finding a cure for Parkinson's, and it's made huge strides in funding research. To date, the foundation has raised over $1 billion for research. What's even crazier is how hands-on Michael has been. Despite his own health struggles, he's been out there, meeting with researchers, advocating for better treatments, and doing everything he can to push for a cure. And here's the thing. This foundation isn't just about some far-off theoretical cure. They're working on real, tangible advances in treatments. It's all about finding ways to slow down the progression of the disease and improve the quality of life for people living with Parkinson's. Michael's been very clear about this. He's not in this fight just for himself. He's in it for the millions of people worldwide who are affected by the disease. Michael used his platform to raise awareness and push for policy changes. He's spoken before Congress about the need for more government funding for Parkinson's research. He's been on TV, in interviews, advocating for stem cell research, which has the potential to unlock new treatments for Parkinson's and other diseases. But, of course, Michael being Michael, doesn't do this in a preachy or self-righteous way. He's still got that charm and sense of humor that makes him so likable. Even when he's talking about serious stuff, he's relatable and down to earth. That's why so many people connect with him, not just because of his celebrity status, but because he comes across as someone who genuinely cares. Now, you'd think that after retiring from full-time acting in 2000, Michael would have stayed out of the spotlight. No, my guy has the passion in him and the will to work and inspire people no matter what it takes. In the years after his retirement, Michael made a series of memorable guest appearances on TV shows. One of his most notable post-retirement roles was on The Good Wife, where he played Louis Canning, a lawyer who uses his neurological condition to manipulate judges and juries. It was a role that hit close to home, given Michael's own struggles with Parkinson's, but he played it with a sharp wit and dark humor. The character became a fan favorite, and Michael even earned Emmy nominations for the role. He also had a recurring role on Rescue Me, where he played a cranky, wheelchair-bound character who forms an unlikely friendship with Dennis Leary's character. And then there was Curb Your Enthusiasm. Oh man, his guest appearance on that show was legendary. He played a fictionalized version of himself, where he and Larry David get into a hilarious feud, with Michael jokingly using his Parkinson's symptoms to mess with Larry. It was one of those moments where you realize that even though he's been through so much, Michael still hasn't lost his sense of humor and passion. In 2013, Michael even made a comeback with The Michael J. Fox Show, a sitcom loosely based on his own life. He played a news anchor who returns to work after being diagnosed with Parkinson's, which was pretty much a reflection of his own journey. The show was fun, heartwarming, and, of course, hilarious. But despite all the buzz and high hopes, the show was canceled after one season. Still, it was a testament to Michael's resilience. He wasn't going to let Parkinson's stop him from doing what he loved. Eventually, though, the toll of Parkinson's became harder to manage, and in 2020, Michael announced his second retirement from acting. This time, it felt more final. He published his memoir, No Time Like the Future, where he opened up about the realities of living with Parkinson's for decades. He admitted that memorizing lines had become increasingly difficult, and he didn't want to compromise the quality of his performances. He's not someone who dwells on what he's lost. Instead, he focuses on what he's gained. From his relentless fight against Parkinson's to his inspiring return to TV, he's shown time and time again that he's more than just a talented actor. He's a true fighter, a dedicated activist, and a symbol of hope for so many people. Whether it's through his foundation or his unforgettable roles, Michael will always be a hero, both on and off the screen. And here we are in 2024, and Michael is still the same incredible guy we've always known, but life has definitely changed. But even with all the challenges that come with the disease, Michael hasn't lost his signature optimism. It's like he's learned to roll with the punches, literally. By now, the Parkinson's has progressed, and Michael has talked openly about how tough it's gotten. Physically, the tremors are more pronounced, and his balance is a lot shakier. He's had a few serious falls over the past couple of years, which landed him in the hospital. In fact, in his memoir, he mentioned that one of those falls was a wake-up call. It was a moment that made him realize just how fragile life with Parkinson's can be. But Michael has never been the kind of guy to let setbacks define him. His family has played a huge role in keeping him grounded. His wife, Tracy, has been his rock through it all. They've been married for over 30 years now, and she's stuck by him through every challenge. She's his biggest supporter, his caretaker when things get tough, and honestly, the glue that holds everything together. Even on the hardest days, they find ways to make him laugh, and that's huge. Family is everything to Michael these days. They're his safe space, his source of strength, and the people who keep him smiling, no matter what Parkinson's throws at him. Michael has definitely slowed down. He's retired from acting for good, but he's still very much involved in the work his foundation is doing. The Michael J. Fox Foundation continues to be a massive part of his life. Even though he's not physically out there at events as much, his influence is still strong. The foundation has been funding some of the most cutting-edge studies out there. It's like Michael's legacy now, and he's proud of what they're achieving. But Michael's focus isn't just on work. He's all about quality of life, spending time with his family, taking things day by day, and embracing the simple joys. He's talked about how he's learned to appreciate the little moments. He might not be able to do the things he used to, but that doesn't mean life is any less fulfilling. Michael seems more at peace now than ever before. He's found a rhythm that works for him, living slower but living with purpose. One thing that hasn't changed is Michael's unwavering hope. Even though Parkinson's has taken a lot from him, he still believes in a future where there's a cure. He's said that while he doesn't think it'll happen in his lifetime, he's confident that the research his foundation is funding will lead to breakthroughs for the next generation. It's that hope that keeps him going, even when the disease feels overwhelming. Michael is still very much the fighter he's always been. His family is his backbone, and his legacy, both as an actor and an advocate, is stronger than ever. Life isn't easy, but Michael's not someone who gives up. He's learned how to navigate the ups and downs, and through it all, he's remained the same inspiring, funny, and kind-hearted guy we've always known. He's living proof that even in the face of huge challenges, it's possible to live with grace, humor, and an unshakable sense of purpose. And honestly, that's what makes him such a legend. Despite everything life has thrown at him, he's continued to inspire millions with his courage and dedication. His story isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving through adversity. Now we want to hear from you. What's your take on Michael's story of life? Would you be able to keep moving forward like he has? How would you handle life when everything feels like it's slipping away? Let us know in the comment section below, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks for watching.